Welcome back. It's Jordan with another Illumilite Explains video, and I'm excited. Look, today's topic is silicone mold care. You just spent a ton of time either finding the right mold and purchasing it, or making the actual mold itself, and now you want as many shots as possible out of that mold. How do you do it? How do you get more shots? What if it's at the end of its life? How do you do that? It's a lot to figure out. Let's just take it step by step. My brand new whiteboard wall. I can't tell you how excited I am about this whiteboard wall. I used to have to spin the whiteboard around. Now we're just going for a journey. All right, like I said, silicone mold care. Look at all these molds. I drew these. That's for you. I'm trying to make this like a fun and enjoyable time because we're learning stuff. The first thing we're going to talk about is library life. What is library life, you ask? It just means how long your mold will last if it's just sitting on a shelf. We're talking no castings, you're not even using it. It's just sitting on a shelf like a book, like in a library. You get it, library life. Well, library life for a tin cure silicone is about 1 to 10 years. That means if you don't do anything to it in 1 to 10 years, it's just gonna be done. It's not gonna be good anymore. That's because of the chemistry of a tin cure silicone. Tin cure silicones are 1 to 10 because it really depends on how much catalyst and not catalyst and what the system is like. There's a lot that goes into it, but 1 to 10 years. Now, a platinum cure mold, well, that lasts 30 years. I mean, a long, long time. I've barely been around here, and by around here I mean the planet 30 years, so that thing's gonna be here a while. Now we know what to expect from the actual life of our mold if we do nothing to it, but we're gonna do things to it. That's why we made the mold in the first place. So what we gotta talk about first is casting with mold release. Now, why do we cast with a mold release? Well, we cast with a mold release because it adds a little bit of a barrier and makes removing that part a lot easier. We put mold release, we spray it usually into a mold right before we do a casting. Here at Illumilite, we use Stoner mold release for a urethane casting in a silicone mold. But if we're doing, let's say, a silicone casting in a silicone mold, or two pieces of silicone are coming together, that's when you use a rubber to rubber mold release. The other thing it actually helps with is it's gentler on the mold. Because you have a nice barrier there, you've added some lubrication, it's not gonna be like, oh, the worst time in the world getting it out of there. Easier on the mold, helps you get all of the shots that you expect out of the mold you made. Now we're doing our castings, we're using mold release, we're getting what we want to get out of our molds, so that's fantastic. But after we've done a casting, sometimes there's maybe some residue or something stuck inside of the mold. We need to clean our mold. Well, to get all the shots and to get the best life out of a mold, you actually need to clean it well. So there's a few ways that you can clean a mold. Let's talk through each one of them. The first option is literally soap and water. When I say soap, I kind of mean a gentle dish soap. Think like Cascade, Dawn, whatever. A little bit of a sponge, hand cleaning, warm water, nothing intense here. We're just trying to gently remove anything that's inside. If you're gonna go the soap and water route, which a lot of us have just on hand in the kitchen, just make sure that is completely dried before you do another casting. If it's not dry and you start casting again, now we got moisture and resin, and we all know what happens with moisture and resin. It's no good. The other option is something called acetone. Some of this might immediately sound scary to some of you. Fine, don't worry about it, use soap and water. But for others, maybe woodworkers or people who are comfortable with these types of materials, acetone just kind of removes a lot of chemical residue and other residues. It fires off fast, means it evaporates quickly, so there's no residue left over in your mold. If you have some, get some on a clean cloth, wipe out your mold, let it air out for a few minutes, then do your casting. The last option, and the one I find most effective, is actually just doing another casting. I'll take my mold that I've done a pour in, maybe there's some leftover foam on the sides because I didn't do it quite right. That's okay. I'll pour some urethane into that mold, slush cast it around, let it cure, and then pull out all of the casting at once, and it takes away all the residue on the walls. I get a clean mold that way. You don't have to use urethane, you could use epoxy, you could use whatever you want really. I like urethane because it's fast, I can fire off the mold really quickly and demold it in 15 minutes and actually do the casting I want to do then. The only note here is that it is another casting. I am still using the mold to clean the mold. So you have to kind of reset your expectations here. If you clean your molds by doing a casting, you're just taking another shot off of the board. We've done some castings, we've used mold release. We've cleaned our molds, they look shiny and beautiful. Let's say we're done using them for a little bit. Now we gotta store them properly. So let's talk about storing our molds in a way that's gonna extend their life. The first thing you wanna do is learn where to store them, and you're gonna hear this phrase a lot. You wanna put them in a cool, dry place. You've probably heard that with other products that you use. You've definitely heard it with where you should store your resins as well. Cool, dry place just means you don't want this thing consistently in 90s and 100 degrees where you're adding heat all the time. And you don't want it around a bunch of moisture and humidity because the silica that's actually in the silicone mold absorbs moisture, just like silica that you use to dry flowers, let's say, absorbs moisture. So we're trying to avoid moisture and a lot of changes in temperatures to our mold. So cool, dry place is a key. Second thing, get it out of the sun. We know UV rays naturally degrade a lot of materials, plastics and silicones and all this type of stuff over time. It's not going to be the biggest deal in the world. It's not going to destroy your mold in a day. But if your mold is sitting in a window or is sitting outside for a long extended period of time, you're just letting UV rays continually hit and degrade that mold. Get it out of the sun if you can. And if you can't, just store it upside down. So it's the outside of the mold and the bottom that takes all the heat. All right, the last thing about mold storage, you can kind of see from these warped molds here, is you want to store the mold in its natural position. You don't want a corner flipped up or things all twisted because the silicone mold will tend to warp, especially if it's just stuck in that position over time. If you're, let's say, using something that has a mother mold, that's a stiff exterior kind of cushion for the silicone itself, so it's nice and rigid, well then you definitely want to store the mold in the mother mold so it's nice and rigid and is in position. All right, we're almost there. You've stuck with me in all my ridiculous drawings so far. We just got two more things to talk about. Then the next one being adding silicone oil. Silicone oil is something you can add to your mold with a simple clean cloth. Just kind of rub it inside of your mold. That brings oil back into the silicone itself, meaning you get a longer life out of it. Every time you do a casting, you're kind of degrading that silicone. You're taking away the oil from it. It means it's not as ready to flex and release for you like it normally does. So when we add the oil back into the mold, we're adding more life to our mold itself. How often should you do this and how do you do this? Well, just grab some silicone oil, put it onto a clean cloth and wipe it into your mold. If you do this every 10 shots, you can, honest to God, get maybe 20 additional castings from your mold than you would have if you didn't do this process entirely. This is a really big thing. We've had customers who the mold's been maybe at the end of its life. They've added silicone oil, they've done the job properly, and they get another 10 or 12 shots out of it, saving their mold, making the whole thing go a lot easier. What is post-curing? Well, post-curing is actually cooking your mold, so to speak, re-curing your mold, after it's been completely finished. So I've poured my master, I've got my silicone mold, I've ripped the foam core walls off, now I've got the mold I want. I can actually put that mold into an oven at about 150 degrees for 4 to 8 hours. You know, it depends on the material that you're using, but for 4 to 8 hours. What that does is it really, we're gonna use the phrase, opens up the pores. Really opens up the mold, allowing all the naturally occurring silicone oil to be evenly distributed and well spread throughout the mold. That means better castings, longer life. When you're adding silicone oil, just like I mentioned at the last point, what you can do is actually post-cure that mold again for an hour or two at 150 degrees, open up those pores again, then add your silicone oil and give it even more rejuvenation when you're adding oil. Post-curing is a really cool unlock and a lot of people aren't doing it. So I'd consider trying it. Just make sure you remember post-curing depends on the type of silicone that you're using. Tin cure, platinum cure, the specific chemistry of that material as well. So do your research before you just jump in. All right, there you go, folks. You're completely done. Now you're knowledgeable, super knowledgeable, on how to make your molds last as long as possible with proper silicone mold care. Please, if this has been helpful to you, hit that thumb for me and also subscribe. We have more videos like this and I'm just gonna keep going on these because apparently y'all really think they're helpful. So I'll see you next time.